In this lesson, we will learn how to set and edit keyframes on Max's trackbar. Now, there are some steps that we want to keep in mind when creating animation. Eventually, these steps will be second nature to you, but these steps are as follows. We first want to go to the frame we would like to create a pose on. From there, we're then ready to pose the character or reposition the asset we're animating, and then we're ready to create a keyframe. Now with Max, it's very important that we are using one of the key modes when we create keys. Otherwise, what Max is going to do is actually offset our object. And here's how this works. Now, if I'm not in any of the key modes, meaning auto key or set key, here's what happens. I'll go ahead and take a look at the mini curve editor so you can go ahead and see what happens as we start to move this character's right arm. You can see how our F curves actually shift. So what Max is actually doing is offsetting the animation, the entire function curve. If I were to go ahead and close this out, you can see as I start to scrub, it's going to remember that offset. Now, this isn't necessarily a bad thing at all. This is actually a great thing because a lot of times we actually want to create a quick offset like this without having to go to our keyframes and adjust the entire function curve. We could just do that right here in our viewport. But we need to be very careful when we make a change like this. So I'll go ahead and press Ctrl-Z to undo back to where the arm was before. And let's go ahead and work with set key. We'll start here. So now if we were to go ahead and try to move the arm, you'll notice that when we scrub with the time slider, the arm's going to pop back to where it was before. Because now we've told Max that, hey, we are in a key mode. Please consider the surrounding keys to figure out if I would like to save this pose or not. All right, great. So let's go ahead and start to tweak this animation. On frame 55, the arm should be planted at this point because the creature is off balance right now. Considering the amount of weight he holds, we need to make sure he keeps his balance. So we've already moved to the frame we'd like to be on. It's now time to pose the character. Let's go ahead and drop his arm to make sure it plants. Great. And now we're ready to save this pose. Let's head over to key filters. Let's go ahead and click on that and take a look. We can tell Max exactly what kind of keyframes we would like to save. Whether they're scaling keys or IK parameters. If we're animating directly on our IK goal, we can go ahead and use that. Or we can go ahead and choose all to save a key on all properties. What I like to do is just create the keys that I absolutely need. So in this case, that would be position, rotation, and I also like to keep on custom attributes if there are any tied to this control. So this looks good. We're now ready to use the big key button, and you'll notice that a keyframe has been now saved. Now if you don't see your keyframe on the trackbar, sometimes you have to deselect and reselect the object, and there we have it. Notice a keyframe has been made. Alright, very nice. Now you'll see that when we scrub from 55 on, that the arm kind of just slides back. And we also have this key on frame 62 that I think is kind of messing up our flow. So what I'll do is go ahead and actually take that key on 62 and remove it. It's very simple. We'd simply go ahead and click on the keyframe, or if we wanted to grab a group of keys, we'd simply marquee select on our trackbar. But either way, after selecting the key, we can now press delete on our keyboard, and now that keyframe is gone. If you would like to wipe out all animation on the selected object, it's just a matter of right-clicking to use the Animate Quad menu, and now you can choose Delete Selected Animation. And take a look, all animation has been wiped out. But at this point, it's not a good idea for this control, so I'll press Ctrl-Z to undo back. Alright, so now that we've removed that keyframe on 62, we can adjust the flow now. We can make sure that the arm is going to remain planted for a few more frames before it moves back. So let me show you another way we can go ahead and create a keyframe. We could actually take this value on 55 we've created and clone that to 60. So it's just a matter of going to 55, holding down the shift key and dragging the time slider to the frame we'd like to transfer the key to. And at that moment, we can then go ahead and save a keyframe there. Now if you notice that's not happening in set key mode, take a look at what happens with auto key. So I'll go ahead and click on Auto Key, go back to 55, hold down the Shift key and drag to 60. And now you can see that Max has brought up a Create Key dialog. Alright, so now what we could do is go ahead and tell Max to save position and rotate keys on frame 60. So watch this. If you were to take a look at the source time, you can see that we've transferred from 55, and then if you take a look at the destination time, this will tell you where this key is being transferred to. So now when we choose OK, we can see that the arm is going to remain locked down from 55 to 60. How cool is that? So again, in order to work with that key creation dialog, we need to make sure that we are working with Auto Key. Now, set key mode is very nice to use simply because we can animate very safe this way. With Auto Key, let's go back to that. I'm on frame 58. If I go ahead and move the character's arm, you can see that a key is automatically created. So we have to be very careful. We can easily override a pose this way. However, with set key, remember that it's going to wait for us to actually tell Max to create the key using this big key button. But without that, without using that key mode, if I were to go ahead and just scrub on the timeline, that pose will not be saved. Alright, so I just wanted to make that very clear to you. But you can see we have definitely improved the animation. We're getting a great feeling of weight. You can see here on 54 how high the arm is up. And the reason being is because we want a good feeling of impact when that fist finally hits the floor to keep the creature balanced, considering the amount of weight the creature has. So these are some things we want to experiment with as we start to animate. So in this lesson, we've learned a few ways we can create keyframes. We've also learned how to delete keyframes. If you need to, again, clear out an entire animation, all you need to do is Alt-right-click and choose Delete Selected Animation. I'd like to show you just one more way before we close out this lesson to create animation. I've selected one of the finger controls. It doesn't matter what, because I want to go ahead and point out how to create a keyframe on a slider. So right now I'm in the Modify panel. We have this custom parameter here named End, and that controls the end section of the character's finger. So if we wanted to save this pose, it's just a matter of holding down Shift and right-clicking. And take a look, we have a key bracket on this slider, just letting us know that a keyframe has been saved. So that is yet another way we can save animation in 3ds Max. Alright, so now that we have an idea of how to do that, in the next lesson I'm going to show you more ways we can modify keyframes on the trackbar.